Hi, Angela Wolf here with another wrap dress. This time it's a faux wrap dress. A completely different style, but technically still a wrap. The skirt has two pieces, the top is attached. It looks like a wrap dress, but guess what? You pull it over your head and this won't come apart. So let's take a look at this different style. So this, because it's made out of a knit, can pull over your head. So there's a front piece, front right and front left. Now this, by the way, when you're designing your own pattern or adjusting your own pattern, you can make this as high or as low as you want. So mine's a little higher, a little more modest, and these are two pieces that will be cut, and then it'll be attached to a band, and then attached to the skirt. So the first thing we need to do is, I have a piece here already finished. You attach the band through this area. So I've kind of pieced this up just to show you some different areas. So the first thing you would do is actually sew the shoulder seams together, but I didn't think you needed to see that. We're gonna attach the band across the front, then I'm gonna show you how to sew these in the side seam, attach it here, and attach the skirt. So to get started, this is the front of the skirt. So this is the center front. Let me move this out of the way. We need to finish that. You don't want it just hanging like that. So if you have a cover stitch machine, that's a great way to finish a knit. If not, you can also use a sewing machine. So you're gonna turn the fabric towards the wrong side, give it a little pressing, a little steam. Now if you're using a polyester, maybe you want to keep your iron a little higher. You don't want to melt your fabric. But give it a little steam, clapper, and that will hold that back. I'm just going to do one side. So you can see this is the part that will finish on the front, just like my dress over there. This side or that side, whichever way we're going. So I'll show you how to do the cover stitch, and then I'm going to show you how to attach this front band. So here's a piece of just fabric. It stretches because it's a knit. I cut it 2 inches wide. I'm going to give that a little pressing as well before we go to the machine. I'm just folding this in half. And sometimes these slinky knits can get a little bit hard to handle. So if you give it a pressing for that area, it's a little bit easier to attach to your garment. I don't usually use pins unless I have to on knits because you don't want to puncture the fabric. You could use clips, or if you're going to use pins, which you have seen me do that for armholes, I would put the pins into the seam allowance, not directly onto the main garment fabric. All right, so we're pressed, ready to go. I would also do both front pieces at the same time, just like I showed you. So there's that piece. All right, let's go over to the machines. If you're going to use a sewing machine, you're going to want to use either a zigzag stitch or a little bit of a stretch stitch. So I'm going to choose a zigzag stitch, and I'm going to change the width to just 1.0. This way it'll stretch when you need to put it on, put the garment on. I'm going to use a contrasting thread, and the key here is that I want you to see how I'm attaching this and where I'm stretching. So in the shoulder area, which is from here to here, there's no stretching. Of the bias binding and the top should be equal. And by the way, I noticed that I pressed this a little off, so just ignore that. You would have wanted to make sure that that was perfectly folded in half. All right, we're almost past the shoulder area. Now this is the area that can really stretch when you go to put this on. So this is the area you want to make sure. So I'm going to just move the top, let the machine do the work. Stitch around, give it a little stretch. Now because I'm not using a serger, I will want to go back and trim off this excess seam allowance. Not sure how straight this is right now, but at least you're going to get the idea. So let me just stop here. Now this top would be really cute if you did a contrast. So see how this is finished? And it'll stretch to go over your body because this will actually be stretched on you. All right, let's go to the cover stitch machine. I have it set for a 3-thread overlock, but you could do a double overlock or 2-thread, whatever you feel like doing. Just slide your fabric under. And what this will do is it will actually hem the fabric. Just pull my extra threads out of there for now. It'll hem the fabric and finish the back edge all in one step. Ideally, you want to focus your eye over here. So the fold of your fabric, this is kind of a hem guide for how you know where your fabric, so you know that your seam's going to be straight for your hem. And when you get to the end, which this is also a tip if you're hemming and you need to go all the way around, put your needles in the top position, lift up this lever because that will release the tension. I usually keep a pair of scissors around, and you just want to kind of slide this behind all these threads. And just pull this thread out just a little bit, and you'll feel this start to come out, just like that. And then, if you just cut the top threads, which is, there we go. And then give it a little tug. It pulls those top threads to the back and secures your chain stitch, which is really nice. So let's see what we have here. I'm going to give this a good pressing, and let's go back up to the table here. So you would have done both sides of the front with this cover stitch. Give it a little pressing. So you can imagine that this is the piece that's going to be here. This piece, we would have done the same thing, and that would have gone on this side, because remember, it wraps over to the left. So that part is finished. And the next thing, let's see, where's my top? Give this a pressing. Now, I didn't stitch this all the way around, but I'm going to still give it a pressing. I would go back and trim off this excess seam allowance. You really only need about 1/4 inch for this. And of course, I'm stitching this live, so it's not the best. This will flip under. So I'm just going to cut just a little bit of this off so you can get a better idea. If you have a rotary cutter, it's really fast. You just flip this over and give it a little trim. All right, so that's about how close you'd want that to look. That looks more professional. All right, so we have this side here. Now let's just focus on the side seams. Again, I didn't finish sewing this entire thing, but you're going to get the idea. This one is finished, and this is how it should look. This piece is going to go underneath, and this piece is going to go on top. Just like this. So I'm going to go to the sewing machine, attach these to the side seam, and the next piece that you'd want to attach are these two, which I don't think you need to watch that. But you would attach these right here to keep these together. They need to equal, which you'll have markings on your pattern, but they would need to equal the width of your top. So I'm going to take these over to the machine. And again, if you're not going to use a serger, you'll need to use a little bit of a zigzag stitch, because when you put this over your head, you don't want to pull out your stitches. Using 1/2 inch seam allowance, I'm just going to attach these, make my stitch length a little bit longer. Now I know it looks weird on a knit, having that zigzag stitch, but when you put it on, it'll stretch out and it does not look like you have a zigzag stitch. See how it'll stretch? All right, now let's look at the other side. You want to make sure that this is laying completely flat. Again, I didn't trim all this, so let's just focus on the sides here. You want that to be nice and flat, so there's no gapping. This does not, you don't want the top layer or the bottom layer to be wider than the others. So even if it was trimmed incorrectly or it moved a little bit, you want to make sure that they're even. I'm just going to stitch down this side. All right. Let's go back up here and compare. So here's my top. I will combine both sides together, so this will fit over your head. Then there's a band through here, and I have my belt. So once you attach the whole front side, you're going to go and attach the back. The same thing, the back will go to a band, and then it will attach to the skirt. The skirt's a little more flowy than the other skirts. So let's just flip our belt to the right side here. It's a very long belt. You want to know why? Because it's not attached into the side seam. And I'll go back over here to the dress in a second to show you. With this belt, I just ran it through the serger, which is, if you don't use a serger, you're going to want to use a zigzag stitch because the belt is going to stretch when you go to tie it around your waist. All right. As you can see here on the side, I've attached the belt right here. So this belt is actually one whole big long piece, and all I did is once I sewed the entire front together, I sewed the back together, sewed the side seams, and the last step was to take this belt and I laid it right on the side seam and did a top stitch to keep it in place. So you can make this belt as long as you want, but notice what happens. It does stretch. So if you had this go around your body once, twice, it doesn't matter, but it's going to stretch, which again is why you need to use a serger or a zigzag stitch so it doesn't pop your stitches. So again, you have a few other design options. You could use contrasting color for the bands. It looks like a wrap dress, but it's not really. So coming up next with our wrap dresses, we're going to talk about finishing those curved hems. They can get a little tricky.